Welcome to the What's Your Ceiling podcast. We're your hosts, Monte, Wyatt, and Paul Scieszinski. Wherever you are in life, there is a higher ceiling. This podcast is how you become aware of it and how to take action to push through it. It's time to discover your ceiling. Welcome to the What's Your Ceiling podcast, where we talk about your health, your family, your business. I'm Monte Wyatt.
Paul Scieszinski.
And we have a great show today. If you love football, you're going to enjoy our guest today. We always start our show with some good topics, and we're going to start the topic today with setting standards and records. Paul, when you hear the phrase setting standards and records, what comes to mind to you?
What I think is someone that sets goals, sets back, that wants to achieve something, and he starts with a standard. They don't take average to be in where they're going. They want to be the best that they can be, and set a standard of what level and what ceiling you want to go to is what you're doing, and that's how you get results.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Setting standards and setting records is all about a personal drive. It's what do you want to achieve? Where do you want to go? How do you want to be perceived? How do you want to leave a legacy? And things like that. And I think our guest is going to help us see that today.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're lucky today to have a great guest here today. Talk about setting standards, reaching ceilings, breaking records. He's here today, and we're fortunate. He was had over 10, first guy in the Big Ten to pass over 10,000 yards. Still with the Iowa Hawkeye passing record. And he went on to coach at the college level. Also went on to even at the professional level, at the I believe it's XFL he coached. So he has many talents, and I want to introduce to you the one and only Chuck Long to tell us about how he set his standards, how he broke through those ceilings, and talk about the times that he got knocked down and he had to get back up and do it again. And I want to welcome you here. Great to have you here, Chuck.
Great to be here, gentlemen. Thanks for having me on today.
Hey, absolutely. It's a privilege. I went to a Rose Bowl back in the 80s, and I think you were there. So I really enjoy watching you. So, when you hear the phrase setting standards and records, what comes to mind with you?
Well, for me, growing up, and I grew up in the Chicagoland area in a suburb called Wheaton, Illinois. And for me, I tried to set the standard daily. I was a daily goal setter, meaning I just wanted to work hard and play hard that day. And I had a coach, a Hall of Fame coach, Illinois High School Hall of Fame coach, Jim Rexilius, who always taught that with us. And he instilled that all the way down to the grade school level. I mean, his influence went all the way down to the grade school level, and he was all about, hey, working hard that day and good things will come to you. That was the standard that he set and we set growing up. It was never much about, tomorrow. It wasn't anything like, okay, growing up, what am I going to do a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? It was more just, hey, working hard that day, getting the most out of that day. That was our standard that we set.
I love it.
Yeah. Now, so Wheaton, Illinois, what size of a high school was that? As far as
graduating class was about 380.
Oh, that's a nice
pretty good size. We had three high schools at the time, three public high schools at the time. Now there's only two, and they're a lot bigger now. To give you an idea, we were a 4A school back then. Now Wheaton North High School, where I went to high school, is an 8A school. So it's doubled in size. So, but it's a great football town. I'll give you a little history of Wheaton. It's the hometown of the great Red Grange. Yeah. And if you know anything about Red Grange, went to University of Illinois. He was affectionately known as the Wheaton Iceman because he carried ice in the summertime. But he really put professional football as we know it on the map. Pro football, 8 original owners going broke in the 20s, the 20s, and then they had to crash in the 30s. But it was going broke, and George Papa Bear Hallis of Chicago Bear family needed a superstar to put pro football on the map. That superstar was Red Grange. He came out of Illinois. He sold out stadiums for the Bears. They were playing 3 games a week, getting on a train, going to the next city, trying to get pro football on the map, get it from the red to the black financially. That was all because of Red Grange. So I come from his hometown. But just kind of give you an idea of the football tradition in Wheaton, Illinois. Started with him and carried on from obviously till today.
Yeah. Now, so and you had had a successful. You went to the playoffs, Wheaton, I believe, your senior year.
I'm an interesting story. We're an interesting story out of Wheaton North. We, again, high school Hall of Fame coach, but we were a running football team. We ran the ball and we played great defense. We passed the ball. We threw the ball 4 to 5 times a game when I was in high school. So we weren't a throwing team. But he believed in a system. If you really believe in your system and work hard at it, you can make it work. And we made it work, and we were very successful. My junior year, we went to the 1979 state championship. If you do the math, I am 60 years old today. So, so we went to in 1979. We lost our very first game, and then we ran the table. And here we are, lo and behold, in the state championship game against LaSalle, Peru, and they were a big time school with a lot of tradition. They were favored to win. We went in there and upset them. We beat them 14-6. And I set an Illinois state record that'll never be broken today. I threw for -3 yards in that football game. So, because of that, gentlemen, I wasn't recruited at all. And again, I was of the mindset of just playing hard every day. Good things will come to you if you do that. That's what we were taught. My parents instilled that in me as well. My dad and my mom were that way as well. Hey, work hard every day and good things will come to you. Well, I didn't know where I was going to college. We just really didn't think about it at that time. We didn't, kids today are planning colleges, going to college after their freshman year of high school, after their sophomore year. We just didn't do that. Here I am, and I was a 3-sport athlete. All I was thinking about was going to the next sport, playing that sport and going to the next one. Well, December of my senior year, football's all over with in high school for me. And I haven't received any phone calls, any recruiting phone calls at all. Well, it makes sense. I only threw the ball 4 to 5 times a game. I mean, who's going to call me, right? Well, mid-December 1980, my senior year, I get the phone call that changed my life forever. You guys probably remember that moment. I think everybody should write a book, What If? What's that moment that got you where you are today? There's always that watershed moment, right? And for me, it was the phone call in 1980 in December. It was a snowy night, and I just started basketball. So I came home from a basketball practice, all right, Monday night, and I get this phone call from the great Bill Snyder, the legendary Kansas State football coach, all-time winningest coach in Kansas State history. But at the time, he was Hayden Fry's offensive coordinator. By the way, I was very blessed to be coached by 2 Hall of Fame coaches at Iowa, Hayden Fry and Bill Snyder. Well, Bill calls me up, Coach Snyder calls me up, and I answered the phone. So here's this guy, starts rambling. He's very monotone. Hello, is Chuck Long there? Yes, this is he. This is Coach Bill Snyder of the University of Iowa football, and we'd like to bring you in on an official visit this weekend if you're interested. So he's very monotone. Bill never gets high, never gets low. He's always like that. And I thought it was my buddy Tom playing a practical joke on me. I said, Tom, is this you? Come on. No, this isn't Tom. Without missing a beat, this isn't Tom. This is Coach Bill Snyder, University of Iowa football. We'd like to bring you on an official visit. Well, it was all a whirlwind at that point. I didn't even remember the rest of the conversation. I get off the phone. I'm the first child in our family, so we've never been through this before. My dad's standing there. So he started listening and going, "Hey, what's going on here?" And my dad says, "Who was that?" And I said, "Well, it's this coach from Iowa. They want to fly me in this weekend for an official visit." He goes, "Well, are they going to pay for it, son?" This is some good funny stories for you guys. So I said, "I believe so." Well, Dad drops me off at O'Hare Airport. I fly into Cedar Rapids. I'll never forget it. I get picked up by the great John Streif, longtime fabulous trainer there at Iowa. goes back to the 60s as a trainer. And they take me to the IRP, the Iowa River Power Company in Coralville, which is the iconic prime rib place. Unfortunately, it just closed down after all these years, but it was the place. It was a big recruiting place where the coaches took the recruits every time. So we go into IRP, and I meet this magical staff. And gentlemen, I'll be honest with you, it was all surreal. I thought they had the wrong guy. I was like, what am I doing here? And so I meet this wonderful staff. I shake Hayden Fry's hand, and he knew all about me. He knew my folks. He knew about Red Grange. He did all his research, and I'm like amazed at what he knew. But the great leaders know how to do that, as you guys know. So I shake his hand and shake Coach Schneider's hand, and Barry Alvarez and Dan McCarney. Kirk Ferris was a young old line coach. Bob Stutz was a teammate and a player. I mean, I'm meeting all these guys. Don Patterson, and who went on to be a head coach at Western Illinois, and Carl Jackson, who went on with the 49ers later on and won a Super Bowl with them. And I just meet this wonderful staff, and I'm like, okay, you knew all about me, you know all about me, but really, what am I doing here? So I get through the weekend. They feed you a lot. You see the academic side, you see the facilities, and they were top notch. Sunday rolls around, and Hayden Fry, the legendary Hayden Fry, brings you in. Back then, they bring you in, and he puts you on his leather couch. He sits you down on his leather couch. He's behind this big desk, and you find out then whether you have a scholarship offer or not. Okay, that's how it was done back then. Today's different. It's a lot different today. You got to offer somebody to bring him, even get him there. Well, I'm sitting on his leather couch, and Hayes behind his big desk. He said, "Charlie," and he called me Charlie. And he had a great sense of humor. He's West Texas humor, and he had his Southern drawl. He goes, "Charlie," he goes, "we would like you to be an Iowa Hawkeye. We're going to offer you a full ride scholarship to be an Iowa Hawkeye." And I jumped out of the chair, and I shake his hand. I said, "Coach, I'm a Hawkeye." He goes, "Settle down, son. Settle down. Hold on. You need to go home and talk it over with your parents. This is all brand new to you and your family. Just talk it over. Make sure you want to come here." I go, "Well, I know I want to come here, but I'll talk to my mom and dad about it." Well, then I asked him, I go, "By the way, what does that mean, a full ride scholarship?" He goes, "Well, we're going to pay for everything. You don't have to pay a dime out of your pocket. We're going to pay for room, board, books, tuition, the whole thing." He went through the whole 9 yards. I said, "Okay, but it's all a whirlwind, right?" So I fly home. You guys will like this. I fly home. My dad picks me up at O'Hare Airport. "How'd it go, son?" I said, "Really well. It's hard to believe this, Dad, but they're going to offer me a full ride scholarship." He goes, "What does that mean?" I said, "Well, Coach Fry said they're going to pay for everything, room, board, books, tuition, the whole thing." He goes, "Have they seen you play, son?" My dad was a beautiful man. He's no longer with us, but he had a great sense of humor as well. Just a wonderful man. But so I said, "Dad, yeah, I know it's kind of weird. Well, I want to get Coach Fry on the phone tonight." And it was always customary. It was always a courtesy call from the head coach to make sure you got home okay. So Hayden did call the house that night. My dad got on the phone. They explained everything to my father. Got off the phone. My dad was beaming. I'll never forget that day. He was beaming, smiling ear to ear. "Son, they've offered you a scholarship." I go, "Well, I know. Who knew?" Well, the rest was history. I knew I was going to be a Hawkeye. After that, Northwestern and Northern Illinois came in and started and offered me a scholarship as well, only because Iowa did. And I was an in-state kid, so they were like, "Hey, we gotta look at this kid, right?" Illinois never came knocking. They're an in-state school, but I knew I wanted to be a Hawkeye. I knew I wanted to go to Iowa, and so I went and never looked back. But I was very blessed to have great mentors and teachers. You mentioned setting standards and breaking through. I don't think there's anybody out there that done set records or whatever and set standards and things that didn't go through some disappointment, right, or some adversity. Mm-hmm. I'll never forget finally getting to Iowa. Now let me backtrack. I came from a high school. We were really successful running the football and playing great defense, barely thrown.
Probably wishbone, right?
Yeah, it was like triple option. Yeah. And I did not know how to read secondary coverages. I didn't know how to read coverages. So I get to Iowa, and Hayden Fry was ahead of the game. He was ahead of the game nationally. Much like you see the spread offense today and people catching up to that, he was ahead of the game, and they were trying to catch up to Hayden. And so I was overwhelmed. I mean, I was overwhelmed from day one. I'll never forget my first training camp there. I was a freshman. About midway through, I called my mother and father and said, I don't know if I can do this. I just don't. I don't know any of this stuff. It's all foreign to me. I'll never forget my father saying at that moment, he said, Chuck, you have to trust me when I tell you this. You have a great staff there. I know it. I know Hayden's background. I know who he has on that staff. You have to trust those guys. They'll get you to where you want to get to. But you got to work hard at it too, which I had no problem doing. So little by little, man, I just learned. I learned coverages. I immersed myself in film study, and I immersed myself in just absorbing everything I could absorb, because I was behind. I felt like I was behind. And I finally caught up and started to feel better about it because of the great coaches and mentors that I had there.
Now, who was in place as quarterback at that time?
When I was a freshman, it was Gordy Bohannon. Yep. You know, the Bohannon boys have done well. Some have, played basketball at Wisconsin and Iowa. Gordy Bohannon was quarterback along with Pete Gales. It was kind of a double quarterback there. And let me tell you about that. So Hayden was in his third year. Iowa's coming off 20 losing years in a row. That was the breakthrough year for Iowa football. Ohio State and Michigan had owned the Rose Bowl for the last 15 years. Either one of those teams. Iowa was the first team to break through.
That was like 1981.
1981. Okay. And that was the breakthrough year for Hayden Fry and Iowa football. We went to the Rose Bowl. Now, I didn't play. I was a freshman. I played a little bit in one game against Northwestern when we were beating them 64-0. Hayden threw me in the fourth quarter, and I completed one pass. And then we get to the Rose Bowl, and we're getting beat 28-0. There's a minute to go on the clock. It was a TV timeout. There's a minute to go in the game, and Hayden turns to me and he says, "Charlie, get on TV for the hometown crowd." So he went in. I went in there for 1 minute and 2 snaps. Okay, the last 2 snaps of the game. I went back to Wheaton after the bowl game for 2 weeks before school started. They practically threw a parade for me in Wheaton.
That's a football town.
My guys, well, just because you grow up in the Midwest, man, and the Rose Bowl's the king.
Right.
The Rose Bowl's the granddaddy. You grow up in the Chicagoland area. And my high school buddies were like, Charlie, you played on the Rose Bowl surface, man, the grass of the Rose Bowl. What did it smell like? What was it like? So they were really into that. But I only played 2 snaps. But I earned a starting job the following year in the spring of 1982. And I had a breakthrough spring. I started to finally get it. I'm starting to finally feel good about being a Big Ten quarterback. Now, I will say this. You asked me what set standards for me. I was always one of those guys that was always motivated by the naysayers. I had people in Wheaton thought, you're never going to make it at Iowa. Well, why are you going there? I always wanted to prove people wrong. That was my motivation. I had a counselor. Everybody has a counselor, an academic counselor in high school. And the counselor always has a group of kids. Well, I'll never forget when I was getting all of a sudden Northern Illinois and Northwestern came into play, and I hadn't signed my letter of intent yet because it wasn't February yet. I'll never forget my high school counselor bringing me in and saying, "Chuck, as your counselor, I just feel the need to tell you this. I don't think you should go to Iowa. I don't think you're going to make it at Iowa. I think you need to go to Northern Illinois, which was a division, a 1AA school at the time. And you need to go to Northern Illinois. I think you'll be better there because you're not going to make it in the Big Ten. That's exactly what he told me. And I said, well, that's good to know. If nothing else, I'll have a Big Ten degree, a good Big Ten degree if I don't make it, is what I told him. But I'm going to Iowa. Well, it's because of guys like him. And he was trying to be, honest with how he felt. And I appreciate that. But those are the people that motivated me.
Yeah.
I was always wanted to be prove people wrong.
Yeah.
And so that was important to me. That was my standard. That was that was what propelled me. Well, in the spring of '82, the quarterback position was wide open, and I earned the job early, and had a really good spring, had a good summer, and 1982 starts the season, and we play at Nebraska. Now, Nebraska was Nebraska back then. Mm-hmm. They were really good. They were nationally ranked. They had Heisman Trophy winners, great players all the way around. We were a young team. They were a veteran team. And we went out to Nebraska, gentlemen, and it was about 120 degrees on the field. And probably my worst day as an athlete. We just got pummeled. I threw interceptions. I fumbled the ball. It was a humiliating day. Now, let me just say this. You guys may not know this, but I was born in Norman, Oklahoma. My side of the family are Oklahomans, okay? My mom grew up in Ponca City. My dad grew up in Norman, Oklahoma, and they both went to the University of Oklahoma. There's 4 generations of Boomer Sooners in my family, okay? And so I grew up a Boomer Sooner in Wheaton, Illinois. And we watched Oklahoma and Nebraska every Thanksgiving. That was a religion to us. So I want to give that background because when we played at Nebraska, I had both sets of grandparents from Oklahoma there. I had about 20 family members watching this. Right?
And this is your first start.
This is my first start.
Yeah.
It leads up to a fabulous, funny ending here. And so we are getting pummeled. I mean, it was a miserable hot day, 42-0 in the middle of the 4th, and I'm the quarterback, okay? Hayden always wore white pants and a black top. That's kind of his trademark, white pants and white shoes. You need to know that because it's a funny ending. So middle of 4th quarter, man, I am not feeling good. I call a timeout. I get to the sideline. Well, Hayden's upset with me. He goes, Charlie, look it's 42-0. Why'd you call a timeout? Let's keep the clock running and get out of this football game. This game's over. I proceeded to throw up all over his white pants and white shoes. And he benched me on the spot. All right? Humiliating day. I wanted to give you the adverse moment because those are the ones that propel you to the better moments. Well, anyway, I shower up. I'm done for the day. I shower up, and I go. And now I have to go out and face my 20 family members, including my 2 sets of grandparents who grew up watching the OU Nebraska series. They knew how good Nebraska is, right? My little old Southern grandmother with her sweet little Southern voice, and she's only about this tall. And I walk out, and I see my family, and she walks up to me and goes, Chuck, you don't have to play this game of football anymore if you don't want to. Grandma, it's only my first game. Give me a break here. It'll get better. She wanted me to quit. She didn't think I could make it.
Oh, what a great story.
Yeah, so she didn't think I could make it. Well, that's another moment where it propelled me. I want to prove people wrong, right? Even my own grandmother. Anyway, so little by little, well, we lose the next game. I didn't even start the next game against Iowa State, and we lose at home. We're 0-2. And Hayden said, you know what? He told his staff, he told the media, we're gonna throw Chuck in there and live or die with him. All right, we're just gonna live with him and see what we can. what we can do, because I earned it in the spring, and I was a young guy, and we're starting over anyway, right? We go down to Arizona. It was a really hot night in Arizona. It was about 120 that night too, and we upset a really good Arizona team down there. And our locker room was just elated and excited, and that was the moment I said, you know what? I might be able to play in this league, because I didn't know up until that point. I said, I think I got a shot. All right. Well, we muddle through the season. I'm still learning on the run. I still haven't felt like I've arrived or just know the playbook or know how to read coverages and know all the little ins and outs to it. But in the meantime, I had a great teacher in Bill Snyder and Hayden Fry just guide me along the way. And so we get through this season, but we're 7-4. We get to a winning year with a young team is really maybe my favorite year. I mean, the Big Ten championship year, my senior year was obviously my favorite, but this was right there, close second. Well, we get to the Peach Bowl, and we're playing a really good Tennessee team. I mean, they had guys like Willie Gault on that team, who played for the Chicago Bears for a long time, and Reggie White, who is one of the best NFL defensive linemen in NFL history. We played; those guys were on the team, so we're playing a good Tennessee team. And we upset them. We beat them. And I had a hot day. We had a hot day throwing the ball. I threw for 320 yards. I finally felt, you mentioned breakthrough moments or breaking through the ceiling. I finally felt after that game, and it took me all year to get to that point where I can play in the Big Ten. I know what I'm doing now. But it took all year and that game, I finally, after the Peach Bowl, I said, you know what? I can do this.
Was it a mental breakthrough? Was it a physical breakthrough? Tell us more about that.
Breakthrough. I felt like I had the physical skills. Obviously, they felt that way in recruiting. I had good accuracy. I have really good vision. I can see. I can look over here and see over here. I just had that wide field vision. I had a good feel for the game, but it was at that moment where I felt like, I can read coverages now. I know what they're doing defensively. I got a good feel for that. But it was definitely a mental breakthrough, because quarterbacking is really all mental. It's 90% mental and 10% physical. I already had the physical tools, but I just knew that that was a moment where the mental tools matched the physical tools.
Yeah, I think a lot of people at times feel like an imposter until they step up to that step. And
Correct.
Like, wow, I can do this.
I can do this.
I'm as good as anybody else.
Right.
But what was great about it, not only did you realize you could do it, you took it to another level. I mean, you broke through ceilings at that time where no other quarterback in the Big Ten had ever touched. So you went from an option quarterback,
basically
recruited from, we'll talk later about Coach Snyder. Obviously, Coach Snyder and Hayden Fry had a lot of faith in you.
Right.
I mean, you had the physical skills. They saw that. And then you mentally stepped up and you stepped in. But you must, and then you went on, obviously, when you broke the records, you were up for the Heisman Trophy. And then what a great story that is in itself. Could you tell us a little bit about leading up to that? And what and you're at New York Athletic Club, and I remember seeing you on TV. It was a pretty magical moment, I'm sure, for your family.
Yeah, and going back to my original, I was always a more of a one-day goal setter. I mean, I just worked hard that day, and Bill Snyder instilled that in me. He always said he had something that he still used when he was the head coach of Kansas State. Be where you are. Be where you are is what he always said. Meaning, work hard today, good things will come to you. Okay, and so I just worked at it every day. I never had a dream of winning the Heisman Trophy. I mean, you watch those guys growing up, and you think, oh man, those guys are in another atmosphere, the stratosphere or whatever, and you just never thought you'd be in that realm. And so had a lot of, like I said, I was blessed with great coaches around me, great players. It was all, it's all a team effort to get in the Heisman Trophy conversation anyway. And we just got better as a team. I got better as a quarterback. I stayed all 4 years or 5 years, counting that, I was essentially redshirted that freshman year is what it was. But so I was just really focused on team goals and getting our team better. I felt like being a starting quarterback on campus, that I had the weight of the team on my shoulders. So I wanted to do everything right for them, for my teammates. I felt like I had to work twice as hard as they did, meaning more like film study. I just immersed myself in film. I was up and, after the academic side of things, I'd go to the office and be up in there till 10 o'clock with Coach Snyder, just studying tape. So I got into that routine, and that's how you get better. You got to work at it. And so we're going into my senior year. Well, let me just kind of tell you that story. I was a senior twice. So there was a Big Ten rule my freshman year in 1981 that said you couldn't redshirt freshmen in the Big Ten. It was only a Big Ten rule.
Mm-hmm. I remember that.
There was an unfair recruiting advantage against the Big Ten. Well, coaches, what they tried to do, their strategy was to play a little bit as a freshman and then redshirt your sophomore year. Well, I ended up being a starter my sophomore year. So I was a freshman during our Rose Bowl in 81. I was a sophomore during our Peach Bowl in 82. 83, when we went to the Gator Bowl, I was a junior, and we went to the Freedom Bowl my senior year in 1984. Well, the NCAA basically came back. They got rid of that rule in the meantime. It was not good for the Big Ten. Well, they came back. The NCAA came back my senior year in 84 and said, you can have an extra year if you want. So I was a senior twice. So I took advantage of it, came back in 85, knowing that we were going to have a good team coming back, a Big Ten championship caliber team. So I was a senior twice. Who wouldn't want to be a senior twice, right? But so I took advantage of that, which allowed me to take a snap in 5 bowl games, which has not been done. Now it can be tied today. It could definitely be tied today, but back then no one could do that. No one did that. So I came back in 85, and you mentioned, Paul, the Heisman Trophy race. Well, I was I think I finished 7th, if I recall, after 1984. Well, there was like 5 of us going into 85 that were up for it. They're going to be in the race. Well, we had a good year. I mean, we had a Big Ten championship year, and at the end of the year, it's down to me and Bo Jackson. And by the way, he won it, but I'm the much better athlete. I always throw that in the Rotary Club. My Rotary speaking tour.
No doubt, that's one of the greatest of all time athletes. What an honor just to be competing.
Absolutely, world class athlete. I mean, the guy was a pro bowler in football and baseball. I mean, he just could do it all, and world class athlete, obviously. So, and a gentleman, a great guy.
And it was within just a few votes of you having the Heisman Trophy.
45 points, which was about 5 votes.
Right.
Huh. Yeah. I could have swung either way there with 5 votes. So the Heisman race went down to me and him by the end of the year. It's not the same. The hype really starts. There's so much hype around it today, and there was hype back then, but you just didn't have the social media back then and all that. But it went down to me and Bo, and we both get invited, along with, I think, Vinny Testaverde was only a junior at the time, and he went the next year, I believe.
Yes.
So there's like 3 or 4 of us that got invited, and we went to and I'll never forget flying into New York City, the first time I've done that, and I see this huge city below, I'm peeking out the window, oh my gosh, that's what starts to hit you. You're going big time here, going to the big city, and limo picks you up, at the airport.
Now, were you with your folks at the time?
I was with my girlfriend at the time.
Okay.
My folks did not go. Yeah, my folks weren't there.
Okay.
Yeah. So limo picks us up, and the reason why is I went into the reason why they didn't go is I went into the Bob Hope show. I did the Bob Hope show like the night before. And that was a wonderful thing. The Bob Hope All-American show. And he had a big All-American show, and it was really fun to do that the night before. So we go in there, and we go to the Downtown Athletic Club, which is a historical place, prestigious place, and then it's on one of the top floors where the room is. So I'm getting my suit on and everything, and I'm with my girlfriend, and she, who's now my wife, and we're going on the elevator, and I'll never forget, she goes, or going up the elevator to this top floor, this room, she goes, by the way, do you have a speech ready in case you win this thing? I go, no, I don't. So I get out a napkin, I have a pen, I start writing some things down. I wasn't prepared for it. The only time I wasn't prepared for something, I'm glad she reminded me, so I did write some things down. It just was all surreal to me. I didn't really think I was going to win. I mean, I just didn't. I was just like in this race, and all of a sudden I'm in New York, and then it hit me when I went into the room. He goes, oh, I might win this. And because it's an hour-long show, so you're in this room with all these Heisman Trophy pictures of all these winners around. You have the big cameras set up, like the studio here, all these cameras. You have this room full of people, and you're sitting in this room with all there's Vinny Testaverde, there's Bo Jackson, you got Coach Fry there. The other coaches are there, and it's like a surreal moment all the way through. I don't even remember. I mean, I'm just like in a fog all the way through this show, because you go a whole hour. And then they go to a commercial break before the announcement, and the president, who happened to be an Iowan at the time, the president of the Downtown Athletic Club, said, "We're going to announce the winner right after this commercial break." Well, your heart is beating out of your chest. That whole commercial break, all of a sudden, you're, oh my God, this is unbelievable. And they come back, and I could tell he's an Iowan, and the president's an Iowan, and he gets this kind of look on his face that I didn't win. He wanted me to win, right? And he announced Bo Jackson, but they brought me up on stage to say a few words before Bo did, and I just said, "Hey, I'm happy to be in the race. Congratulations to Bo, and if you're going to finish second, might as well finish second to Bo, right?" Then he made a speech, but then we were in the limo. And we went to all the nightclubs all night long in New York City.
You and Bo Jackson?
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Bo Jackson? Did you?
Yeah. Me and Bo.
I remember I watched it. They zoomed in on you guys on the TV. And, what a magical time of your life.
Yeah.
But, so, you didn't just settle winning or be a runner-up at the Heisman, I should say. You went on to be professional at the professional level, and you were drafted. I'm not sure where.
I was drafted in the first round by Detroit. Yeah,
by Detroit. Tell us a little bit about your professional career, then going into coaching.
Professional career. The good thing is I came out of it pretty healthy. My professional career was not what I wanted it to be. I did manage to play 8 years in the league, but I was injured. I had a Tommy John surgery on my throwing elbow after my third year in the league. It kind of derailed my career. I just wasn't able to throw the ball as effectively after that, although I did stick for 4 more years after that. Had a really good, my rookie year was kind of a wash. I was a late signee during training camp, so I played the last 2 games of my rookie year. My very first start was on a Monday night against the Chicago Bears, and they were really good. That was coming off their '85 Super Bowl team, and their front seven, their defense was arguably one of the best in history. So I had a rough night that first night, but we almost beat them. We actually, they beat us on a last-second field goal to win the game. So we took them down to the wire. 1987 was a strike year, but I had a good year. We were not great as a team, but I had some moments where I threw the ball really well. I had a 380-yard effort against Green Bay, and I was really on my way. And then it hit. My arm just wasn't working. I just overthrew it, and I couldn't grip the ball. I couldn't throw it 10 yards, and I knew something was wrong. And so my third year, I tried to get through the preseason, and they sat me down for a couple of preseason games. I started off the year and played 6 games or so, and I just could not throw the ball effectively. And my 2 fingers were numb, and I was just struggling. And then I had a knee injury, and then they finally put me on the shelf. They finally put me on IR, injury reserve, for the rest of the year. I had surgery that following February, Tommy John surgery in California. And so I was out all that year, my 4th year. Well, NFL teams don't wait around. Mm-hmm. They got to move forward. It's a business. We all know that. They drafted Andre Ware in the first round out of Houston. And so I knew my days were numbered in Detroit. They actually traded me. I fought back. I rehabbed my arm all of that year and got it back to a certain point. Not all the way, but functional. And they traded me to the Rams because the Rams, teams aren't going to pick you up unless you're able to play. So I was a backup at the Rams in 1990. They released me in 91, and then I came back, and Detroit picked me up for 3 more years. I came to that moment where, I wasn't playing. I was just a backup, and which is not a bad place to be. You're on a team and you're still contributing and trying to help the team. But in 1995, I remember early on, I had that moment, gentlemen, where because right now I'm just waiting on a phone call. I'm waiting on an NFL phone call. And usually at this point in time in my career, I'm waiting on a call when somebody gets hurt. So I'm waiting on another quarterback to get hurt before they give me a call. And that's just, it's the bad part of the business, but that's just part of it. So I'm in the spring of 1995, and I'm thinking, well, I'm not going to go to any training camp right now. I'm going to have to wait till the fall before I even get picked up. Do I want to do this? Well, I get a call from Hayden Fry. Long story short, I get a call from Hayden Fry. He had an opening in the summertime. One of his coaches left in the summertime, and he called me in the summer because it's hard to replace in the summer. It's hard to get guys from other staffs to come in the summer. The staffs are set. So he needed a secondary coach, a defensive back coach. And he called me up. He said, "Hey, Charlie, I know you're on the offensive side, but you've studied defense. Would you like to be my secondary coach?" And I said, "Well, give me a chance to talk it over with my wife and family, and let me call you back the next day." He goes, "Sure." And so I was at that moment in the middle of summer. Well, do I wait? Do I say no to Hayden and wait till the fall? Because I still had aspirations of playing still. Mm-hmm. You just want to keep playing as long as you can. And then I thought, you know what? It's really hard to get into coaching. Really hard. You got to know people to get in. And those jobs are like gold. So after talking over my family, I said, I want to take this job and retire from the NFL. So I retired, took the job from Hayden, and ended up being in coaching for 20 years after that. So he got me in 2 different times. And I loved Hayden so much. He was like a father figure to me. I always heeded his advice, and I just felt like, here's a chance for Hayden to get me back and get me in the coaching gig, and I took it and never looked back. Now I had those moments in my mind when I was coaching that first year. Gosh, I still could play. I still can play. But that all eventually went away, and I enjoyed being a secondary coach under Hayden for 3 years. I was there 5 total, 4 under him, the first Kirk Ferentz year, 1999, and then hit the jackpot with Bob Stoops the following year in 2000. He hired me as a passing game coordinator, and went to another wonderful staff, a great staff. Bob Stoops we won the national championship in 2000.
Undefeated.
Yeah. Just a magical year, lightning in a bottle. We had no injuries at all. We had a great chemistry and cohesiveness on that football team. Learned a lot about cohesiveness on a team. Only undefeated season I've ever been on.
But Chuck, we've talked about this is that was kind of a magical few years there in Oklahoma because you were with your kids. You got the opportunity to coach your son, a quarterback at Oklahoma there for a year. Tell us a little bit about that and
well,
what
that was later on.
You.
So my kids were still young at the time. We had 5 going to Norman in 2000.
Okay.
And we put our roots down there. All my kids are now older now. They're all out in the working world, but all my children graduated from Norman High School, which is kind of neat because my father graduated from Norman High School. And my oldest daughter, Lindsay, graduated in 2006 from Norman High School, and my dad graduated in 1956. So that was a really cool 50 years later, my daughter graduating from the same high school. But anyway, that's a little side story. But so we set roots down there. The 6 years I was at Oklahoma, gentlemen, were magical. We were the best college football team in the country. We're at the top of the college world. We were, I think, 67-6 over 6 years. Now, the further south you go, the football pressure goes up big time. I'll give you an example of that. We lost 2 home games in 6 years in Oklahoma, 2. After the first home loss, I had 6 for sale signs in my front yard the next day. 6 of them. They wanted me out of town. My wife looked out the window. She said, "Honey, don't look out the window." I go, "Why? There's some for sale signs in our front yard." I go, "Well, is there a moving truck out there?" But that's the kind of pressure there is at a place like Oklahoma. They want you to win big and they want you to win championships. Well, we won it all in 2000. Well, that spoiled everybody, right? We went to 2 others and lost. We won 3 Big 12 championships. We were flying high. And it was a really exciting time for me, my family, the community. Well, Hayden always told me this, gentlemen, when I got into coaching. When I said yes to him on that summer day in 1995, he said, "Now, Charlie, I want you to be sure about this, because the longer you are in coaching, the more chance you are going to get fired. And so just so you know, your family will probably have to go through that at one point in time. It's just a volatile world." I said, "I understand that, Coach. I still want to get in it." Well, so far I haven't been fired. We're on the top of the world because of our success at Oklahoma. I took the San Diego State head coaching job, which needed a whole new reboot, a whole recycle. We had to build it from the ground up. Long story short, I needed 5 years to build that program up, and I told the athletic director that. "You need 5 years here." Well, they gave me 3 and fired me. I was upset. I learned, but there's always a silver lining. I learned a lot about San Diego State that really helps me today and what I'm doing today. At a place like San Diego State, you don't have money. You don't have resources. You have to wear many hats. I had to be the head coach. I had to sell the tickets. I had to deal with the media. I had to deal with the academic side with my players. So you just don't have all those resources that Power 5 schools have today. Iowa has all those people in place to help with that. We did at San Diego State. But I learned how to wear those hats, which helped me today in what I'm doing today. So there's the silver lining, right?
Yep.
You have to take the positive as much as you can out of those situations when it's not positive at the time. Well, I got fired after 3 years there. Our staff did. And then I remained at San Diego State because contractually I couldn't go anywhere else. Otherwise, I would have to forfeit all the money that they owed me, and I didn't want to do that. So I stayed in San Diego, and actually was part of a really unique year coaching my son's freshman football team, and then watching my boys' basketball team he was a junior at the time. So I watched him do that, and then I got picked up by Kansas, went to KU as an offensive coordinator under Turner Gill. Long story short, we got fired after 2 years there. I took that next year off and watched my son's senior year in football, okay, in Norman High School. He was a quarterback, and he was a third-year starter. And so I didn't see his first 2 years, only by TV, via satellite, or a taped game. So I saw it live, and I was a volunteer assistant coach on his team. And I loved it because I didn't have to be the head coach. I didn't have to be the play caller. I was just a volunteer assistant coach. And I was actually the receivers coach because our head coach was the quarterback's coach. And I was fine with that. No pressure at all. I loved it. And my daughter, Maddie, was the pom-pom captain. And so when we were on offense, I'd watch my son. And if we were on defense, I'd turn around and watch my daughter. It was right behind me. It was really neat. So best year of my life as a volunteer assistant coach. And just because my son was playing, my daughter was a pom-pom captain. And so I took that year off, and then I got into the Big Ten Network after that. And I was an analyst for 8 years with them. Mm-hmm. Kept my toe in the water, so to speak, my football toe. Loved my relationship with the Big Ten Network. Still have a great relationship with them. Was 8 years with them. And in the meantime, I took the CEO and executive director's job for a 501c3 called the Iowa Sports Foundation. Iowa Games is one of our big pillars. We have 5 pillars underneath this umbrella, and all we do is promote health and wellness, sports and recreation statewide in the state of Iowa. Proud to say we have participants from all 99 counties, touch about 200,000 lives a year. We have 3,000 volunteers. We have commissioners that run sports, and we're just trying to get people active and trying to get Iowa a healthier state. But I'm really happy to be doing that. And then this last spring, gentlemen, I coached in the XFL for Bob Stoops. You guys know it's all about relationships. Football coaching is all about relationships and building relationships over time. Because of my relationship with Bob, he called me last year and said, hey, you want to coach for me in the XFL? My board of directors here at my foundation allowed it to happen because I can work from there a little bit. And so I went down to Arlington, Texas from January to May and lived out of a hotel coaching the Arlington Renegades quarterbacks with Jonathan Hayes, who I played with at Iowa.
Tight end.
Yeah, tight end. And he was the head coach of the St. Louis Battlehawks in 2020. Before that went bankrupt because of COVID, he was the head coach there. So I coached for him there. And we coached against Bob. So it was a great year. We won the championship. We had a really good quarterback, and we struggled during the course of the year. We got hot at the end of the year, and we won it all and won the championship. So I've had a unique football's brought me all over the world. It's brought me to different places, but it's the relationships that you build over time. You guys know that all of a sudden come back to you in a good way.
Paul, this has been a great interview. I think we could talk all day, and I love the stories. And you tell some great stories. What were a few things that you've taken away from our conversation today?
I think this is something that everybody needs to think about, and especially someone like me, is be present. Daily grinding it out. And I think what a important thing to have, because I got to tell myself that. Mm-hmm. I'm always thinking, I got to go and I got to get it done. And you got to grind every day. Mm-hmm. You got to show up every day. Mm-hmm. And being present, I got to tell myself that. My wife tells me that. Yeah. So it is. It's important, and it's good to hear that from someone like yourself that's achieved and went through so many ceilings and achieved what you've achieved. But and from my observation, some of the things in talking about is you're a coachable guy, and I think probably Coach Snyder, and we've talked about Coach Snyder arguably is one of the greatest coaches of all time. He must have saw that. Hayden Fry saw that. Coach Stoops saw that. All these people, and I think it's something that, when you reach certain levels, sometimes your ego can get in the way. Mm-hmm. And I mean, be honest with you were at Iowa. I thought you were one of the biggest Eagle guys around. And then I beat him about 10 years ago, and I realized this guy isn't what I thought. But that's a compliment, I think, of anyone that gets asked to come back, to people that you basically grew up with those guys at the University of Iowa into adulthood, and they're asking you to come back. But that's a wonderful asset to have. And Chuck, it's
Well, my father instilled that in me. He was always, he and Hayden both always said, walk softly but carry a big stick. Be humble in your approach, treat people right, and you're going to get knocked down. You better stay even keel through it all. You get too high and too low, or you go through you'll be an emotional wreck. And so it started definitely with my father. He was always stay humble, work hard. And then it carried on with Hayden and Bill Snyder. Bill Snyder always had this rule in his room: hey, show up. It's kind of what you just said, Paul. Show up on time, ready to go. And it's very simple. I still use that today, think about it today, and it's if you have those three simple things and rules, and you'll have a good day, you'll work hard, and good things will come to you.
Absolutely. There's a couple things I want to share with our achiever, the audience. Work hard, good things come to you every day. You had a mental breakthrough, and we all can have mental breakthroughs, multiple mental breakthroughs. Right. And that's probably the hardest thing, because we think we're strong enough, we think we're physically ready, but it's that mental aspect that can hold us back a lot of times. And I think that was a huge one. And I also loved how you said, do the right things for the team. And so it's bigger than you. It's about what the team is for.
Right.
So I love that.
The greatest moments I've had in my life are team efforts. I've had individual moments, and those are great. I enjoyed actually coaching more than I did playing, because you can just to see the light turn on with a young man. When they come in raw and the light turns on, there's nothing finer. That's a great moment for a coach. But I enjoyed watching growth in a room or growth on a team as a coach. But it's the team efforts that you remember.
Yeah,
most
absolutely. There's always the last couple of questions that we like to ask. One is, what do you want to be known for?
I want to be known for as a good guy, very humble, and good to people. I want to be, again, my father was good to everybody. My father never had a bad day in his life. He didn't show it. He might have had one, but he never showed it. So when he came home, he had a smile on his face. I want to be known for that as well. I want people that when they meet me and see me say, hey, they walk or say that guy doesn't have, he has a smile on his face. He treats you right. He doesn't have a bad moment, or at least he doesn't show it.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. And how would our audience find you and the Iowa games? What website or what place would you like to send us?
IowaSportsFoundation.org is the best way to find us. And we have a website, and then we have 5 pillars underneath that have different websites. But IowaSportsFoundation.org.
Wonderful. Chuck, this has been a great interview. Really enjoyed the time. And any other comments that you have, Paul?
No, I'm just glad to have you here. Chuck, another thing that we didn't touch on is the competitors he had to compete against. Because you had Vlasic I believe Vlasic was coach or a quarterback back in the day. But that's another day, another story.
Day.
But I want to tell you what, fantastic to have you here. I really appreciate you stopping into the studio today and joining us, because anybody that's broke through ceilings like he has and still stay humble and you're still out there doing good.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the show. What's Your Ceiling? We'll see you next time.